So we had this discussion on Monday's show, but I want to reset the topic a little bit because it's getting a whole lot of conversation here this week. Which performance was better? Jalin Hyatt against Alabama in 2022 or Christian Moore in the College World Series Friday night against Florida State? That and more. It's your Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is good, everybody? Welcome into your Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane. You can always find me on Twitter at _Kaner and at Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys, you everydayers, for making Locked On Vols a part of your morning routine, 30 minutes or less. You can watch us, listen to us, download us, subscribe to us for free wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on Locked On Vols YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe there if you haven't already. Today's show, we're going to have a busy one. All right, we are going to break down those two elite, historic individual performances in recent memory. Jalin Hyatt in 2022 on the gridiron, Christian Moore on the diamond. Coming up here in segment number one, because a lot of people have been talking about it the last couple of days. And again, in my opinion, there's a right answer, but it's not like you're putting down the other performance. I mean, goodness gracious, they were both elite, right? I mean, let's be adults here and have that conversation. Just because you side with one side doesn't mean you think the other one is trash. Let's be adults here. I wanted to do a segment here in segment number two called Addition by Subtraction. If I could speak, that'd be nice. I want to look at some of Tennessee's departure via the transfer portal and what Tennessee is going to replace those players with. Will it be addition by subtraction? Why am I struggling with that word? By subtraction, or is Tennessee going to hurt in some of those areas? Let's have that conversation in segment number two. And then let's look at the latest football power index and what is projected for Tennessee entering the 2024 season. All right, so without further ado, let's dive down into it. So the question was asked on the Monday night chat over at VolQuest.com, which performance was better? Jalin Hyatt, Alabama, Christian Moore against FSU. And it's a fair question because both were so elite performances. Alabama game 2022, Tennessee wins 52-49. That's the best game I've ever covered. That is my favorite game of all time. It was a blast. I mean, what that win meant for Tennessee, not just Tennessee football, but Tennessee in general, the entire fan base, the university as a whole. You snapped a 15-game losing streak to your number one rival. You did it in historic fashion with Hendon Hooker and Jalin Hyatt doing Hendon Hooker and Jalin Hyatt things. You won on a walk-off field goal essentially as time expired. And you had one of the greatest performances of all time with a 6 reception on 8 targets, 207-yard game with 5 touchdowns by wide receiver Jalin Hyatt. Jalin Hyatt entered that football game with 5 touchdowns. He left that football game with 10 touchdowns. I mean, it was elite, right? And even late in that game when Tennessee fumbled it and Alabama had an easy scoop and score, and you can sit there and say, oh, man, it's over. Oh, man, it's over. There's the other shoe that dropped. Tennessee came right back and right back and right back. And so that game and that performance was phenomenal. Not taking anything away from it. But I would say that Christian Moore's game in the College World Series against Florida State on Friday is better. And people will come at me and say, oh my gosh, football just means more. Football, and I hear you. That's why I talk football on this show every single day. Football is my favorite sport. Also, I know that football is what you guys care about, and I know that football is what gets ratings for this show. I get it. Football means more. But when we're having this conversation, you're looking at a regular season elite performance compared to a College World Series historic performance. What Christian Moore did against Florida State on Friday night, only one other player in the history of the College World Series has ever done before. That's hit for the cycle. And not only hit for the cycle, when he wrapped that up in the 6th inning, Christian Moore came back and doubled in the 9th inning and scored the game-tying run. Words can't even describe what that type of game was for Christian Moore. Just incredible, phenomenal, historic, all that and more. That does not mean that Jalin Hyatt's game was trash. I mean, I still think that was one of the best individual performances I've ever seen. But stage has got to matter, right? When you're discussing these two things, when you're talking about these two things, the stage has got to matter. Sure, I mean, regular season, you're at home, Neyland was rocking, all that type of stuff. And, this stage, you weren't on the road or anything. You weren't at home, but you had 25,000 against packed Charles Schwab Stadium. And I understand Neyland Stadium can get 90-plus in there. But you had 26,000 fans packing Charles Schwab Stadium. Biggest crowd you're playing in all year long. All eyeballs are on you across the nation. You're playing on ESPN. And you hit for the cycle, and you continue to do that even after the cycle's over, again, doubling and scoring the game-tying run. Oh, yeah, I haven't even mentioned this. And a 4-run, come-from-behind, walk-off win in the bottom of the ninth inning. Oh, of the College World Series. So, again, I think stage has got to matter. So that's just my opinion. I mean, I think there's a right or wrong answer. But that doesn't mean that my interpretation of this is necessarily the correct answer. We can have conversations about it. But, just because I would say Christian Moore's performance, I think, was better, a leader, is that a word? It doesn't mean that I think anything less of what Jalin Hyatt did against Alabama, because that was just tremendous. And then, of course, Dalton Connect's in this conversation as well. Dalton Connect against Auburn. Dalton Connect against North Carolina. Dalton Connect against Alabama. Dalton Connect, I mean, he scored what? Over 39 points, or at least 39 points in 4 games. He topped 40 points one game. He scored over 30 points 10 times or something. I mean, Dalton Connect had the volume. Dalton Connect had more games to choose from. But again, and I mean, Dalton Connect against Purdue in the Elite Eight was a great performance, but you didn't win that game. So you've got more to pick from. But the fact that this was in the College World Series, and because he did something that only one other person has ever done before at that stage, is why I think that takes the cake. So there's been a lot of elite performances here lately. I mean, you could make the case that Dalton Connect and Christian Moore have had the two best single seasons in Tennessee sports history, and they've done it in the same academic year. How about that? It's pretty phenomenal, right? You could argue that both Dalton Connect has had the best single season ever for Tennessee basketball, and that Christian Moore's had the best single season ever for Tennessee baseball. And their seasons kind of overlapped a little bit there at the beginning for baseball and the end for basketball. What a time to be a Tennessee fan. Spoiled right now, really. And we'll see how Tennessee ends this baseball season. I know a lot of people says, okay, baseball, yeah, I don't really care. Let's talk when it's football season. You'll care when they win a national championship. You'll care if they go to the College World Series final series, because you're one win away. One win later today, and Tennessee is going to literally be playing for a national championship. Huge times. A lot going on here. Really, really fun team. And, of course, Christian Moore's historic performance on Friday against Florida State kind of kicked off that conversation. We'll continue on here with the Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. Addition by subtraction, ? That's coming up here in segment number 2 as we continue on with the Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performances. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money is back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car turn in your car to that MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep a ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, guys, segment number 2 of a Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols at _Caner at Locked On Vols. You can always follow the show. Appreciate you everydayers for hanging out with us each and every single day. So I wanted to have this conversation about, we're discussing, offseason rankings, where Tennessee fits entering the 2024 season. Of course, we're midway through June, towards the end of June almost. At least by the end of this week we will be. So we're getting ever so close to fall camp starting, and fall camp's going to be starting there at the very beginning of August. And trying to think about rosters, individual positions, and kind of got me over the subject of who Tennessee lost in the transfer portal. And not every single person I'm going to mention here, but some of the bigger ones or some of the starters at key positions or rotational pieces, and try to see what Tennessee has replaced them with either players on the roster currently or players from the transfer portal. So the first name, and then I determine if it's an upgrade or a downgrade. So bear with me here. Let's kind of work through this together. Tyler Barron, defensive end. He leaves via the transfer portal. You replace him with Tyree West, Tyree Weathersby, Dominic Bailey, and Jason Jenkins. Strength in numbers, right? I will still say that is a downgrade, and that's has nothing to do with the individual talent of West and Weathersby and Bailey and Jenkins. I recognize that Tyler Barron was a handful off the field and in the locker room at times, and was a hard player to manage at times or coach at times. Not all the time, and I think that he matured a lot throughout his time at Tennessee, but I recognize that it was not always roses with him. But he had a breakout year last year. Will any of these guys produce the stat line that Tyler Barron produced last year? I hope so. We'll see. But even though you split time at that position considerably, Tyler Barron broke out in a big way. And so just from a production standpoint, I'll say it's a downgrade, but I do really, really like the options that Tennessee will have to play in place of Tyler Barron this year with Tyree West, Tyree Weathersby, Dominic Bailey, and Jason Jenkins. We go on now to the offensive tackle position. Gerald Mincey leaves. Lance Hurd comes in. Gerald Mincey has played for years. He's a veteran in this league. He's played for 3 different teams. Lance Hurd is a sophomore that was a reserve last year, but unlimited potential. Sky's the limit. Former 5-star. I recognize he hasn't done it yet, but I'm going to say that's going to go ahead and be an upgrade for sure. He was just behind some other guys who were really, really good at LSU and who were, a year or two ahead of him and had the leg up. And so nothing really, much that he could do about that. So he comes here and he's going to be your starting left tackle. And I think that Lance Hurd's going to be really, really good. So that is an upgrade in my opinion. You lose Elijah Herring. Elijah Herring was your leading tackler in 2023. He had his limitations. Sure, he was not a great out-of-the-box player, and he was still learning to play in the box and everything, but I thought he got better and better as the year went on, and I think that he's going to ball out at a place like Memphis where he is now. But you lose him, and he was your leading tackler. You essentially replace Elijah Herring with Keenan Peely. Keenan Peely, you didn't get him from the transfer portal this offseason, but you only had him play 1 game last year. And when he moved out, that is why, with injury, that's why Elijah Herring had to play so much. So that's going to be an upgrade because Keenan Peely, again, has been in college for a while. He knows where to be. Rave reviews, both spring practices, that he's been here on campus for Tennessee. And I think that he's just an all-around better player than that of Elijah Herring. So that's going to be an upgrade. Go to cornerback. Man, you lose Danico Slaughter, Brandon Turnage, Warren Burrell, who played a little bit. Of course, Deshaun Rucker and Christian Conyer as well. Those guys didn't play hardly at all this year. But you lose a lot at the quarterback position. You replace those guys with Jermon McCoy and Jalen McMurray. I'm going to say that's an upgrade. And I recognize that those guys haven't played here yet, and there's still a lot of questions to be answered. But Jermon McCoy was a freshman All-American. Jermon McCoy is still learning how to play cornerback after playing, after being a track star and being an offensive threat, coming into college, being recruited as an athlete, essentially. I think I like Jermon McCoy so much that I'm going to give this entire thing an upgrade despite losing Danico Slaughter that when healthy was a pretty good player for you. And all these guys who have seen playing time for Tennessee. Jalen McMurray, a death piece. Going to be the 3rd cornerback for Tennessee. Needs to get better for sure. Got some questions about him, but I like Jermon McCoy that much. I'm going to say that this is an upgrade. So, upgrade. Let's go to safety. Wesley Walker, Tamarion McDonald, Jack Luttrell. Jack Luttrell never played. Of course, he was a true freshman last year. He redshirted. Wesley Walker played a lot. Tamarion McDonald played a lot each of the past couple of years. I think they were solid players. I don't think they were impact players. I don't think that they were bad players. I think they were just very, very, very solid. Tennessee's going to replace those guys with Jacoby Thomas, who is going to be a fifth-year player in college coming up from MTSU, played a lot of football, but hasn't necessarily played at this level. So for now, I don't know. I've got it status quo. I guess if I had to pick an upgrade or a downgrade, probably would be a downgrade because I don't know anything about Jacoby Thomas yet because, I know about him, but in terms of playing on the field here at Tennessee, we don't know. We just don't know. Now, Andre Turrentine's going to be in there with him. Will Brooks is going to be in there with him. I know a lot of people don't like that, but it's what's going to happen. John Slaughter's going to be in there with him. What if Boo Carter took over the star position and Jordan Thomas shifted back to safety? I think that would make sense, in my opinion, to help out with some of the depth at the safety spot. And, of course, for Boo, if he were to get hurt and he comes along and he takes a spot, if he were to get hurt, you can just slide Jordan Thomas right back down. Maybe that's something they can play around with as the year goes on. I think that is something that they could definitely play around with as the year goes on. But nonetheless, I think for the most part, Tennessee is upgrading with what they have on roster or with what they got from the transfer portal. And, of course, this is all objective, and you could disagree with me and all that. Gerald Mincey is a guy that's played a ton of football, and Lance Hurd's not played a ton of football yet. I gave that an upgrade because I think Lance Hurd's got so much potential. You're not the number one overall signee for the 2023 LSU signing class and a former 5-star if you don't have potential. And Lance Hurd's got a ton of potential, and Lance Hurd had a really, really good spring here on Rocky Top after transferring over from LSU. So I just thought that was kind of a fun exercise. We're going to break through and kind of give a take on each position group over the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks, kind of leading into the summer, leading into fall camp, and what we think those position groups can be. That's going to come up over the next couple of shows right here on Locked On Vols. But Tennessee lost some impact players. Tennessee brought in some impact players. Welcome to college football in this era, 2024. Always moving. Roster management, roster retention, roster attrition, all that and more. That is the college game as we know it right now. Hey, when we come back, we'll take a look at the Football Power Index and what it thinks about the Tennessee Volunteers. That's coming up next as we continue on here with a Wednesday Locked On Vols. All right, we got a final segment left here of this Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. Let's take a look at the college football FPI, the Football Power Index. Football Power Index. And what the Football Power Index is essentially it looks at. Oh, here it is. I had to highlight it and it went away. The Football Power Index is a power rating that tracks each team's strength relative to an average FBS squad. Teams are rated on offense, defense, special teams, with the values representing points per game. So that means, as an example, Georgia is rated as nearly 27 points per game better than the average team, which is pretty good. So that's kind of what the FPI is. And, of course, we've talked about FPI here on the show. They update it throughout the offseason several different times, and we bring it on here. And it's just something, again, that none of this is set in stone or anything. In fact, many years, whenever Tennessee was really bad, Tennessee had a high FBI ranking, yet it didn't always translate into, obviously wins that next football season. But I like to kind of look at it and kind of see what these metrics and these pocket protector guys and Bill Conley and Neil Payne kind of, view Tennessee in terms of the numbers. What are the numbers saying? Well, Tennessee is ranked number 9 in the latest FPI national championship odds. Tennessee has the 9th highest national championship odds according to the FPI rankings. Tennessee has an FPI of 16.6, which again means that Tennessee is 16.6 points better than the average FBS team, which is pretty solid. Whereas Georgia was nearly 30 points better, Tennessee is about half that. And so, that's not bad. Projected wins for Tennessee is at 8.6. I think we can all agree that if Tennessee has 8 wins this year, that's disappointing. If you have a 9-3 regular season, okay. 8-win regular season again would not be great, but you have an average percentage chance better, according to these FPI, that you're going to win 9 games than 8 games this year. Playoff percentage, according to the ESPN FPI. Tennessee has a 36.6% chance of making the expanded 12-team playoffs. Well, that's good. Tennessee has a 2.6% chance of winning a national championship in 2024. So, 36% chance to make the playoffs, that ain't bad. I like those odds. I like that percentage, right? I mean, it's not 50-50. So certainly it's not a given. You know, it's way far away from being a given. It's way far away from being a 1 in 2 chance, but nearly 40%. It's not bad at all. Not bad at all. A couple other things I wanted to look at. The FBI here ranks the top 20 college football programs in FPI. Again, Tennessee's ranked number 9, an 8.5 ranking on offense, a 7.6 ranking on defense, 17.2 or 16.6 points overall, meaning Tennessee, according to this, is 16.6 points better than the average FBS team. Now, they announced, according to the numbers, the top 20 biggest games on the schedule in 2024 in college football. Tennessee has 3 of those games. 3 of the 20 biggest games in college football, according to ESPN's FPI. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 11th biggest game of the season, according to the FBI ranking, is Alabama at Tennessee. Alabama at Tennessee, the rating is 91.4. Of course, that's an SEC game. The 12th biggest football game of the season, Tennessee at Georgia. Tennessee at Georgia has a 90.6 ranking. And then the 17th biggest football game of the year, according to ESPN's FBI, is Tennessee at Oklahoma. And I mean, of course, we know how big these games are. Of course, you know, Florida's not on this list. You know, Kentucky's not on this list. But, you know, kicking off SEC play, week 4 of the season, on the road, welcoming Oklahoma into the SEC, while Oklahoma and the Sooners are playing their national championship winning quarterback who, just so happens to be the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. All the storylines, of course, I mean, you know, shocker that that's the first game that Oklahoma's going to get, right? Shocker that Tennessee's not playing Texas in year 1 in the SEC, but Tennessee's playing Oklahoma. Yes, lazy storylines, I get it. But that's a massive game. You got Jackson Arnold, got a really, really good offensive line. You got a nationally ranked, probably top 15 team in Oklahoma. That is a huge game to open up SEC play. And in my opinion, that's the first true test for Nico Iamaleava in Tennessee. Because sure, you have a neutral site game in week 2 against NC State, and NC State's going to be solid, don't get me wrong. But I think it's a game that Tennessee can handle, and it's also on a neutral site. This will be a really good team on the road environment. It's going to be a big, big test, and the first true big test of Nico Iamaleava's career, in my opinion, outside of maybe his first start, which was the bowl game, and he passed out with flying colors. We know that Alabama at Tennessee is going to be a monster game. What will Alabama look like this year? Don't have Nick Saban. First year with Kellen DeBoer. But you still have Saban's roster that you built for the most part. Yeah, there were players that left via the transfer portal, and DeBoer's brought in a lot of players as well. I get all that. But this is still Nick Saban's fingerprints is all over the depth chart. Nick Saban's fingerprints are all over the roster. It's going to be a really, really good team. And you got Jalen Milroe, who is one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best college football players in the country right now. And you got really, really good offensive line play, Tyler Booker and company. And you got really, really good secondary play because, of course, like I said, Nick Saban's fingerprints are all over that roster. So that's going to be a huge game coming on the road. As we talked about in segment number 1, the last time Alabama was at Neyland Stadium, well, Tennessee snapped a 15-game losing skid to the Crimson Tide and had one of the more historic elite performances in all of Tennessee athletics history in Jalin Hyatt and Hendon Hooker, connecting for 5 touchdowns. It's going to be a monster game. We know that. But it will be at home. Third Saturday in October, it's going to be mid-season. We're going to have an idea of kind of where Nico is in his progression. And if Tennessee wants to be a college football playoff team. I do think Tennessee can get in the college football playoff with a 10-2 record. However, if you're counting on that game you're going to lose, then you know you're going to lose that Georgia game we'll talk about in a moment. You got to be spotless in everything else. Oklahoma, Kentucky, Florida, NC State. You're going to be spotless in every single thing else. But I do think Tennessee can win that game at home. I do. But it's a huge game. And then, of course, Tennessee at Georgia. We know how big that game is. That game's going to be in Athens. Georgia likely undefeated at the time, number 1 overall team in the country. It's not going to be playing for the SEC East. Not going to be playing, potentially could still be playing for an opportunity to go to Atlanta, but you go on winning percentages, in the SEC regular season now on who gets to go and compete for an SEC championship. But that's going to be a monster game because Georgia's going to likely be the best team in the country or one of the 2 best teams in the country. And where's Tennessee at? How does Tennessee play in that game? Because even in 2022, when Tennessee had that breakout year, it was not a competitive game in Athens. Tennessee lost by 14 points, 27-13. It was not a competitive game in Athens. And that was the loudest football game that I have ever been a part of. Open air press box. I think they actually changed that this year, by the way. I think that they redid the press box. But anyway, it was an open air press box, and I couldn't hear myself think. It was brutal. But nonetheless, we know how big that game's going to be. So I think it's pretty cool. You play in the SEC, you're going to have big games. We know that. But Tennessee, according to ESPN's FBI Football Power Index, Tennessee has 3 of the top 20 college football games this year. 20 most important college football games in 2024. Okay, appreciate you guys for joining us here today. A little bit under the weather. The weather's changing out here, of course, and allergies are getting to me, so I apologize if I sound like I'm a little bit under the weather. I feel fine. Just the allergies are acting up, but hopefully that'll pass, and we'll be back stronger than ever tomorrow. Tennessee, back in action in the College World Series at 1 o'clock later today. Hoping to get us covered for a little bit of talk on that Thursday show about the College World Series game. So have that to look forward to and everything else here from Omaha and in the world of Tennessee football recruiting. All that and more coming up on your Thursday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. Please subscribe to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Set it to download. That's how I get paid, and that's how this show grows. We download these shows. We subscribe on Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. And more than anything, we just tell a friend about it for sure. Appreciate you guys as always. We'll do it again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.